Well, good afternoon. Here it is. Today, October 11th, and it is 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. I'm not sure what time it is where you are, but I want to welcome you to another edition, another podcast on the Kingdom Fundraisers Live, and I am Willie Peterson, your host. I'm glad to be with you one more time, and let me tell you, it's been a crazy week. I'm going to use that term. I almost said difficult, but ain't nothing too hard for God. And if he's able to bring you to it, he's able to bring you through it. And that's exactly what he did for many of us here in Florida. But also there was a lot of destruction and a lot of damage, some loss of life here in the state of Florida. I'm on the eastern side where there were at least 100, if I'm correct, 110 tornadoes that struck down in my general area. There were the majority of them on Thursday, early Thursday. In fact, Wednesday through Thursday. That it was Wednesday actually into Thursday. We experienced several tornadoes. People were calling to make sure we were okay. I reminded them in Ohio we experienced tornadoes. I don't think we've ever had that many back to back to back. And believe me, when I say back to back, we would have one, it would clear 20 minutes or so, and here comes another one in our area. And we do know some friends who lost power and other things, but thank God we're okay. Ellen and I did survive the storm. We lost power. It was early in the morning, and it was back on before we even woke up. In fact, we were watching TV. At least I was at 2 a.m. and between 1 and 2, and it was flickering. At some point, I just decided to go to bed. And watch this. Yes, we went to sleep in the midst of the storm. When God is in control, you can rest and sure that he has your back. And so I did have my little phone on so that if there was an emergency broadcast and anything that we needed to know, we would know. But nothing went off any different than during those past 24 hours. So again, I'm very grateful that God brought us through it. And one thing again, if he brings you to it, he's able to bring you through it. Somebody ought to say, man. Good morning, Brother Mark and Sister Doris. Thanks for joining me again for this morning's edition for our TGIFF, or formerly the TGIF, thank God it's Friday podcast, now known as Kingdom Fundraisers Network or podcast. We're glad that God kept us safe, and we just keep praying for you all as well. God is able. And so I want to kick things off today, and I want to continue to have our conversation about when we've been talking specifically about the logic model. Someone said to me, "So why are you hammering it so hard?" I said, "I'm giving you information now. If it's not something you want to need, then you can just bypass that. Join our YouTube channel, and there, or become a subscriber." And there you can go back and forward to find out what we've talked about in the past. And you can get information that's there to help you on your journey to be a kingdom fundraiser. And that's really what our goal is to help you become a kingdom fundraiser. But also using our model, WePD, where we assess your organization's vision and model. We attach that vision, or we find funders who will match that vision so that we can help you have a consistent cash flow. Now, you can find information on our website, wepd.com, that will help you, again, connect to me one way or the other. You can download our courses, or there are 3 ways of doing it. You can get the do-it-yourself course. You can log on to do it with me or me with you, or you can then finance it we can finance it. You can finance it. I'm sorry. Well, we can do it for you. So there are 3 areas on the webpage that will help you. You can get a free guide. Log on and get our free guide. The 10 mistakes fundraisers make. It's yours for free. There you can also register to have a 30-minute one-on-one with me where you can answer some of your direct questions. So please don't hesitate to do that. You can find those things there on that site. Join my YouTube channel, or again, subscribe to it. Here you'll see at youtube.com at Pastor Willie, and then you can get the videos there. That's what we want to make sure you're able to do. And again, Whether it's through fundraising or speaking engagements or partnerships, you can go again to the wepeatinc.com/contact me and pretty much get all of your information. Now, if you want more, you can get the LinkedIn, the website, the YouTube channel. All of that can be found right here on the Linktree/Pastor Willie page. You can even subscribe there, where as we add new things, you have access to it on a regular basis. But our goal is to make sure that we can help you again become the kingdom fundraiser that God has called you to be. And then we're there to work to help you get your vision off of the paper and onto the pavement so that you can go from startup to sustainability and help your organization live and last as long as possible. Because in this fundraising era today, there are so many people competing for funds, and that's what's going on. I mean, myself as a fundraiser, I'm working with organizations. I'm actually here in a location now, working with an organization, and we're looking for funds to increase their cash flow. But not only that, to be able to implement new programs or expand, actually, some of the programs that they've already been working with down through the years. And for the last 3 years, they've been working with the program, and now I'm on board trying to help them expand the reach, and be able to increase the volume of people that they serve, and to help more people get into healthcare, different educational fields. We're partnering with several organizations here to help them expand employment opportunities for their membership. And so that's what we want to help you do. Expand your vision. Again, go from startup to sustainability. And for those of you all who already started up and got things going on, maybe we can help you get your vision off of paper and onto the pavement. Is that okay? Now, let me go back to trying to help you guys understand what we've been talking about it for quite some time, especially as it relates to working with logic models. The initial 5 components of a logic model: input, activities, output, outcomes, and then impact. So we want to make sure that you guys are growing in these areas. We've talked about inputs, we've talked about activities. Even last week we spent some time talking about output and outcomes. I want to add the impact to that, because when you talk about outcomes, you really are talking about short term, medium range, and your long term, which is the impact that we make. So our podcast today specifically focuses on understanding the key components of the logic model, and again, particularly the distinctions between the output, the outcome again, and then the impact. And these are crucial as we assess the effectiveness of your organization, the program, or your project. So now when we go back, let's talk about the inputs again. Those are your resources, the materials needed to carry out the activities, and it's defined. Those are defined, and your resources are what you need to execute your program and the project successfully. They can include staff, volunteers, equipment, training materials, partnerships. Examples of that are funding from grants, computer and technology for training, professional instructors or staff, even the curriculum and educational resources that you can use. Those are inputs. Those are things those are the resources you need to execute your program or your project. We talked about activities a few weeks ago. Activities, which are the core processes or actions that are undertaken by the program. These are your core processes or actions undertaken by the program. Activities are specific actions or processes that your program performs using the inputs that we just talked about. That, for example, these activities are program deliverables. We call them outputs. Like conducting workshops or training sessions, offering mentorships or programs, organizing community outreach and events. These are the type of activities that you can do again that are undertaken by the program, and these help you use those inputs to be able to uh, implement your activities. We talked about outputs last week. Outputs are the immediate and measurable products or the services that result from the program activities. These are the results you're looking for. So these are the immediate outputs. These are what we're doing right now. And the measurable one, because most funders want to know, how did you get from point A to point B? How are you going to measure that? How are you going to define that? And these are tangible results, such as the number of participants that were trained in your program. How many workshops did you conduct? How many people attended those workshops? What was the results of that? Let me give you some examples of outputs. Again, the number of participants who were trained, number of workshops or classes held, the number of community members reached. You got that? And then how do you measure those outputs? You track the attendance. You can do surveys, your participation, and or how about a completion record? Just say your activity was, and your output, your activity was to have 20 people attend this class. Then you can measure that because 15 of them actually attended, 20 signed up, 15 attended, but guess what? 10 of them completed, and you can also say what was the results of their completion. Then you can create a checklist of tangible deliveries as it relates to your output. You can checklist. You can always, there's a chart that you can create. The checklist, the goals that your activities were going to create. Here's what we're going to do for activities. And here's the result of those goals. Are you there? Now, let's talk about outcomes. We want to make sure that you're getting everything that you need so that you can do so and get these things accomplished. Are you there? You with me? Okay, let's go to the next one. How about your outcomes? We talked about input. We talked about activity. We talked about output. Now let's talk about outcomes. Your outcomes are the changes or the benefits that occurred as a result of your outputs. You got that? Your outcomes are the changes or benefits that occur as a result of your outputs. They are usually short to medium term, and they reflect the shift in behavior, skills, or even the condition of the target population. So the goal is to get to see something happen. So your outcomes, you want to see something happen. How do you identify them? Well, you ask, what changes do we expect to see as a result of our outputs? You start with that in the beginning. Here's what we're trying to do. So what are we looking to see happen when we've completed our workshop, when we completed our training session, when we completed our outreach? What is the result that we want to see happen? And we look for measurable improvements to knowledge and behavior or circumstances. Those are the kind of outputs the outcomes you want to happen from the things that you were doing. You're looking for measurable improvements in knowledge, behavior, or circumstances. Here's some examples. Improve job readiness after completing a job training program. Again, I mentioned that where I'm at right now, we're looking to enhance the job training program that they had from one area in healthcare to several other areas and offer other opportunities for employment programming. So our goal is to improve job readiness after everyone completes our training program. How about increase healthcare skills and knowledge in participants? For those that's enrolling in the healthcare program here, we want to make sure they can pass the entrance exam for example, CNAs or LPNs or RNs. That we have a post program that can help them get into the program and then stay there. How about enhance community engagement or access to services? How about making sure that people have access to the services that you're providing in the neighborhood? Maybe some folk live too far. How about a food desert, for example? You want to have a community engagement to have a conversation, but now once you have the conversation, one of our outcomes is to have a specific location or transportation to where people can get these services. How do you measure these outcomes? Well, you can have pre and post surveys that assess the changes in knowledge and skills. You can survey people every time you turn around. Monitor the changes in the participants' behavior or the situations over time. For example, if your employment rates or your job performance has increased, your employment rates have changed because you're registering 20 people. When you started a year ago, only 10 was doing it, but you continued to work on your program. Now you have a 90% employment opportunity. That's it. Now let's look at that fifth thing that I talked about. I added a few weeks ago, because generally when we talk about outcomes, we generally talk about outcomes, and we talk about short, medium, and long range. But I've separated the long range to the long-term impact. And let me rephrase that. I separated it so that the long term emphasizes the impact. In other words, impact refers to the broader long-term changes that result from your program. The impact refers to the broader long-term changes that result from your program. And these changes often occur at a community, societal, or institutional level, and they take time to manifest. There are organizations that picket. There are organizations that levy or go to community meetings. They go to state meetings. Why? Because their goal is to see change in the long run. Many of the things we're dealing with now politically are designed to make an impact in the long-term, long-range way that you and I live. So when we talk about logic models, it includes things like that, as we talk about social work, that macro level social work that goes beyond the neighborhood or the individual, but now we're talking community. We're talking going to your community organization, or going to city council meetings, or going to state meetings, things like that expand that reach, but also give you a broader, you can now focus on the larger or long-term changes in the community. Now, how do they manifest? How do we identify the impact? We ask, as we're organizing, as we're planning our long-term logic model, as we're doing strategic plans, and I do plan on talking about strategic planning real soon. And so as we get ready for that, now we ask the question: what long-term change are we trying to achieve? We look for shifts in large trends. How about we look for shifts in systems or conditions that were influenced by our program? What shift happened? What systems changed? Did any trends change? What conditions changed based on what our long-term goals were? Examples of that: did we reduce unemployment rates in the community as a result of our job training program? How about improve overall health income in the population due to increased health care or the access to the education? Did we increase economic stability in low-income households after the program interventions? Things like that. Those are examples. How do we measure the impact that we're talking about? Longitudinal studies to track change over time. The long-term studies to track changes over time. Sometime when we write grants, we write goals of what we can see done in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 5 years down the road. Another way that we can measure your impact: community-wide assessments and evaluations. Get the community involved. What does that really mean? Is that neighborhood? Is that region? Is it citywide? But get involvement and do assessments so you can find out if that impact is making a difference. Then you can also use data from external sources like government statistics and healthcare records. If you're trying to increase the health of children, then you can monitor that by following the healthcare records from hospitals or other locations that tell you how you're doing, the impact of the health of the children in your area, in your neighborhood, in your program, or whatever. a lot of time after school programs or child care centers, they monitor the health of their children. And you can do that if they're in your program 9 months a year, then you can do monthly charts to see if children's health is changing, rather it's dental, eyes, physical, mental. These things can be monitored and a part of your long-term impact for the population. I almost said congregation, for the population that you serve. So these are some of the things I want you to consider to think about as we talk about the logic model and specifically these three areas: outputs, outcomes, and impact. Last week I focused on outputs and outcomes. I wanted to add today the impact portion of that and put them together so that as you're studying these videos and you go back to review them, you have a way of putting them all together. Now you have them all. Impact. You have your activities. You have your outputs. You have your outcomes. And today you have your impact. And again, understanding the three is key to tracking the success of any program. Doesn't matter what you're doing. These apply to everything your organization is doing. Every program that your organization is doing, you can apply this principle, which is the reason why I wanted to make sure I extended this to you and to suggest that you use this as you're looking at what you're already doing or you're looking at what you plan to do. Look at your impact. Look at your input. I apologize. Look at your input. Look at your activity. Look at your output. Look at your outcomes and the impact you intend to make. And I promise you, if you monitor those properly, you will be successful. It takes time, but it works. So the takeaways I want to make sure you receive today is the outputs, what was produced immediately. Your outcomes, what change results from your outputs. Your impact, what is the long-term effect those changes have on the community or the society. And by focusing on each of these stages, you can clearly define the value of your program, and it makes it, and then you can make the adjustments needed to ensure that you're on track to achieve both your short-term success and your long-term impact. That's what I wanted to make sure you got out of today's live podcast. It's very valuable. The things that I'm sharing with you today are very valuable. They will help you get from startup to sustainability. They will help you grow your ministry organization. They work even in ministry. Trust me. If you're building a church, if you're starting new ministry, if you're starting a new outreach ministry, a logic model makes sense. That's why it's called a logic model. It just makes sense. Huh? And if you do these, get back to me, write to me, ask me some questions. How do we actually implement them with specific programs that you have? I've already showed you how to contact me. You can get to me right here at www.wepeatinc.com. You can connect to me. You can get my free guide, and then you can go to the calendar and you can contact me right there so we can help you go from startup to sustainability. Again, this is how you do it. Click the link to connect to me. Do it today. Ask me the questions that you need, and let's get you started. Don't forget, go to Linktree/Pastor Willie. Download all of the connections, and you can go to YouTube and subscribe. You can go to my webpage. You can go to my Facebook page. You can DM me directly through the Facebook page and ask direct questions. And it is my goal and desire to be here to help you become a kingdom fundraiser and to help you go from startup to sustainability so that you can get your vision off of the paper and onto the pavement. Thanks for joining me today. Again, I'm Pastor Willie. I look forward to seeing you this time again next week. Pray for us as we pray for you. See you next week.